Hello and welcome to the Healthy Half Hour podcast. We are your hosts, Richard and Karen Inslee.
Our goal with the Healthy Half Hour podcast is to be a resource in your toolbox for all things diet, exercise and healthy lifestyle related.
We'll be sharing our personal insights and experiences alongside research gathered from working in the health and fitness industry for over the last 12 years.
The show is brought to you by Sunnyside Honey Pot, all things honey related. So if you want to check out things that we make from our bees, their wax and their honey, you go to sunnysidehoneypot.com, and also please feel free to visit the healthyhalfhourpodcast.com as well.
And without further ado, let's get on to today's show.
Hi everyone, we're back. Obviously it's been a little while since we've put anything out there.
6 weeks?
I don't know, just
September.
Busy time.
And now it's November. But not to worry, like I say, people listen to this in next March won't care.
But right now, obviously, my time has been consumed with my clover honey pot business and obviously doing all your regular day-to-day activities, and it's coming up to Christmas, so things have just got a little bit crazy, and because I obviously hand make everything, then it kind of takes up a lot of your time, but it's worth it anyway. So
I've never seen you so happy, sweetheart.
Yeah,
it's always lots of fun, and I spent a lot of time through September and early October figuring out, because we flipped over with that website to an e-commerce website, and
we've had good reviews on it. It's the people who've seen it so far.
Yeah, it's a new platform for me. I've never used it before, so the learning curve was steep. I think I might have mentioned it in the last podcast that I was chewing into it, but now I kind of got to grips with it a little bit, so it's looking good. So at least we've got somewhere now again we can sell that's secure online and take online payments, and people can online shop, and we're slowly working the nuts and bolts out with the shipping stuff, but for the minute we're just doing like local deliveries and people are collecting, so it seems to be working okay. So
well, on our next podcast we're actually going to probably be talking about the website and Clover Honey Pot a bit more, and do some like health benefits.
Yeah, I should do one on that and the benefits of honey and other stuff. Mm-hmm. And again, you tout a lot on that site about it. So yeah, probably good to explain some of that stuff. Yeah. But one podcast we've been on about doing for a while is kind of the shift workers one, and more than ever now, again, with people's schedules being turned upside down, it's not necessarily shift workers that this applies to. It kind of applies to people because their days are getting longer if they're homeschooling with the COVID drama that's going along outside the window. But these things, so we thought we'd tackle this one now and just kind of hopefully go through and give you a few pointers that may save your sanity, your health and anything else that comes along.
Yeah, because up until a couple of years ago, I think it was 4-year stretch that I used it. I developed and taught a workshop at our local college for the CN rail workers, and it was a nutrition and fitness for shift workers workshop. And it was really, really well received. And over those 4 years, I gradually built on the presentation and workshop, and we got such great reviews from the students. And well, when I say students, some of them were in their teens and some of them were in their 40s and 50s. Career change.
Yeah, so, again, it was like all spectrums. It wasn't because these people were training to be conductors and engineers to actually drive trains across the country. So and there's a lot of, just a bit of background on that. The shift work. I've got a client who is a train driver, and they'll go from here like 4 hours west, and that's pretty much as far as they'll go, or 5 hours. They can book into a hotel at 10 in the night, and they can get up at 4 in the morning or get a phone call at 4 in the morning that another train's coming back through, and the other engineer or whatever's sick, and they need to jump on and get on it. So their schedules are like topsy-turvy and everywhere. And they go into the States and they go all over the map. And it's like I say, some days they can get 3 hours sleep and be expected to jump back on. Or some days they'll sit in a hotel room for 3 days and have to wait for the next train coming through that they have to take over, and the other guy stays in another hotel room and then takes it back again. So just a bit of background on kind of where this was all kind of coming from.
And also, and as I said, the workshop, I like improved and increased like content during those 4 years. But at the beginning of it, I don't know like who listening is familiar with the series on TV called Mayday, and it reenacts all the plane accidents. And they actually did one on the Mayday show that was involved one of, I don't know whether it was CN or CP rail, I can't remember, can you?
No, I
think
remember.
it might have been the CN, I'm not sure. But it was a big accident, and I believe, like from memory, I think the 3 engineers died. And basically the Mayday program actually covered how sleep deprivation affected and poor health affected them in their job. And what it was is, I think one of the guys had a flu, the other guy hadn't slept much, and I can't remember the third one. But I kept referencing this program, and this episode, should I say. And Red River College, where we taught, they actually added it into the CN program as part of the curriculum because it was so vital to the guys helping to understand just how important health and nutrition is.
And again, the Discovery Channel do a really, really good job of actually reenacting the whole thing, and they don't just gloss over everything. They go into everything really, really deeply. And again, with the aircraft tragedy one, we went to a party, I don't know whether I've said before, a few years ago, and it was a load of Air Canada pilots, some retired, some still working, and we just got into conversation with a couple of them and just were talking about this. And all of them watched the program because they said you can learn so much from just watching it, and what, you know, how aircraft accidents and other things happen. And again, Discovery Channel do a really, really good job of analysing everything and talking to as many people as they can, hopefully survivors. And it's just, again, it's something you've not caught. It's certainly worth looking at.
And some of the friends at whose house it was at the party, the father and son were both like pilots, and they'd be discussing the Mayday show, and then their wives would be going, stop talking, stop watching that show. So yeah, we're going to just kind of like touch on, I mean, I want to kind of like cover the importance of sleep and like the negative health benefits of sleep. And as you said earlier, like right now, I mean, although this workshop was called Nutrition and Fitness for Shift Workers, it really applies to so many, because like even if you're not working shifts, then you might be struggling with your sleep, that you feel like that you're working shifts because you're not getting enough quality time actually asleep. And the thing with sleep is that sleep's actually anabolic and being awake's catabolic. So if you're familiar with like exercise terminology, like anabolic is where you build things up and catabolic is where you break things down. So sleep is anabolic. So basically you need minimum 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, and probably people listening, like very few people actually do get the amount of sleep that we actually need. And when I say sleep, you know, like quality sleep as well. And there's a lot of side effects to sleep deprivation. You can have disrupted gut health. So, you know, like constipation, like diarrhea, you're more susceptible to injuries. There's an increase in depression for people that like don't get enough quality sleep. You can develop heart disease, alcoholism, cancer, blood sugar dysregulation, weight gain goes hand in hand with like poor sleep habits. Obviously, stress and anxiety and irritability can increase because we, you know, if we've not had enough sleep, then we do get pretty irritable. And right now, with everything that's going on in the globally with regard to COVID, like, you know, the stress and anxiety and irritability is like at a high anyway. So if you're not getting enough sleep, then it's going to be even further impacted.
And again, this is kind of with the shift workers, because again, we've given this background before, but I mean, I worked night shifts for 7 years, and yeah, I'd go to bed at 8 a.m. in the morning and would get up at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 7 hours, was it 7 hours great sleep? No, because humans are not nocturnal, so our circadian rhythm and everything is a little whacked out. So that can obviously this is the shift workers thing was obviously going to bed at silly times, but again, a lot of this stuff just all ties into, even if you are going to bed at normal time, you're going to kind of get the same results if you're not sleeping properly.
And one of the things when I used to do this presentation, I'd put like a slide up and it would have like diagrams of some of the symptoms of like poor sleep and sleep deprivation. And people would laugh when they looked at the slide that said that sleep deprivation and shift work can elicit hallucinations. And I had a corporate client and he was ex-military, and I always like to share this story when I do this presentation, because he said that when he was in the military, I can't remember, I think he was in Europe at the time, and he was on maneuvers and he hadn't slept hardly at all for 3 days. And he literally hallucinated that he saw like troops coming like down this like valley, and he said he was hallucinating because of the lack of sleep. And I'm like, wow, like, because like people think like, oh yeah, you don't get hallucinations from lack of sleep, and like I say, this was a critical time for him. I mean, when you're in the military, to hallucinate that the enemy's coming towards you, and he genuinely actually did experience that. So and I know that there's a lot of people that actually think that they have like lack of willpower, that they crave sugars, and they can't do anything about it. And one of the reasons behind that is actually, it's not that you've got like a lack of willpower. It's actually that sleep can actually elicit some of these responses, because if you're sleep deprived for anywhere from as little as a 24-hour period, the glucose that's available to your brain is depleted by 6%. And so what happens is, like, that triggers your brain to go like, hang on a minute, I've not got enough like glucose available to me, so I need to replenish those stores. And so what actually happens is that your body goes like, eat more sugar. So it's not a case like of having poor willpower or sugar addiction. It could actually be relevant to like poor sleep habits. And I know that I've mentioned this before in podcasts, but shift work, poor sleep habits, and that's only just over a 24-hour period. So think about if you're like, you were 5 nights continual like working night, and then you had a couple of days back to normal, and then you've got police officers, paramedics, firefighters who are like all over the place. So their sleep habits are going to be disrupted like continually over like multiple days. And so if glucose stores available to your brain are depleted by 6% just over a 24-hour period, think if you're going for like days after days after days and not getting quality sleep, just how much of an impact that's actually going to have.
And it's almost, again, I've seen studies that it's almost like having type 2 diabetes happen to you within 24-hour period. It's not that you've got type 2 diabetes, but again, that blood sugar and those regulation issues can just spiral. And yeah, a good night's sleep will fix it again, where obviously a good night's sleep won't immediately fix type 2 diabetes. But again, the body will kind of assume that kind of position just momentarily while you're just trying to fix yourself again.
And with regard to the brain, the cortexes in the brain are not completely equal. So you've got your prefrontal and your parietal cortex, and sleep deprivation can further deplete those glucose stores. And your prefrontal and parietal cortexes are responsible for a lot of your decision making and emotions and intelligence. And so I'm sure that people who've had a lot of alcohol have made some very poor decisions when they've been drunk. But again, people make very critical and poor decisions when they're sleep deprived. And going back to that Mayday episode, the guy at the back of the train was asleep and missed the red light, and that's what was the obviously main cause of like that accident. And so sleep deprivation can actually cause us to make very bad decisions. And Sleep deprivation also causes the prefrontal cortex to shut down our emotional intelligence, and like it shuts down our ability to make good judgments around food. And so you do reach for the wrong foods, and you make poor decisions about which foods that you're going to have, because ultimately, because like your brain primarily is designed to run on glucose, then what are you going to go do? You're going to go straight for those sugar stores. And the prefrontal cortex shutting down actually affects our emotional stability and can actually lead to depression as well. So a lot of the times, like, sleep deprivation like has so much of an impact outside of things that you don't even like realize that you've like got control over, but basically you are making poor decisions and you don't have any control over it, because it's as a result of lack of sleep, lack of poor good quality nutrition, should I say. And I'm sure that a lot of you have heard the expression, oh, you can't eat after a certain time of night.
No.
Oh, people say like, oh, you should stop eating at 7:00, and ultimately, like, what if you're working shifts? Then you've got to navigate your nutrition around what your work schedule actually looks like. So whether it's you as a parent juggling homeschooling, working from home, having to work at different times of the day and not necessarily doing shift work, or you are an actual shift worker, you should actually keep kind of like as much normality as you can. But actually that eating after a certain time of night or eating late at night is actually really hogwash in some respects. That basically you can eat at whatever time of day works for you, because our schedules, didn't it, used to be such that we would not eat before 7-8 o'clock at night, and that was our schedule. And your body adjusts and like manages to work around what your schedules are. But basically, with regard to eating after a certain time of night, if you're at a healthy weight, so if you're at a healthy weight, healthy body fat level, and whenever you eat, your cortisol levels will rise. It doesn't matter what you eat, it's just your cortisol levels in your body will actually rise. So cortisol is your internal coffee pot. We've said this before. So cortisol is high in the morning naturally, so it helps you to get out of bed, and then it gradually lowers and lowers and lowers throughout the day. And so just before you go to bed at your typical bedtime, your cortisol will be sort of at its lowest. So if you have something to eat and you're at a healthy weight, then your cortisol levels will probably go up only by about 5%. But if you're overweight, obese, chronically obese, then your cortisol levels can rise by up to 51% when you eat. So when you're at an unhealthy weight, then your cortisol levels are going to go up higher. So the only reason not to eat within a couple of hours of going to bed only is a factor if you are overweight or clinically diagnosed as obese. Because if you think about it, if your cortisol levels increase by 51%, then you got that internal coffee pot is going to get switched on. So you are not going to have quality sleep. You're not going to be able to get to sleep. And that's when it's a factor. So what your current health and weight is right now will kind of determine when is the best time for you to eat, and not necessarily what is good for your overall health and body weight, and like whether or not it's like shift work. And you try to keep like a normal pattern when you were working shifts. So when you got up in 3 o'clock in the afternoon, like you wouldn't have breakfast, we'd have supper. You'd keep it as normal as possible, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, and that tied into my exercise regimen at the time as well. But yeah, I may have a small something when I got up out of bed, but rarely. And then we would have supper probably 5 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock at night. I would leave for work at 9. In the probably first break time, which was nearly kind of 11 o'clock-ish, I guess, 11:30, I'd probably have a couple of pieces of fruit. 2 in the morning, I'd probably have what would have had for supper as some reheats. And then when I got home in the morning, I would have normal. I used to eat a lot of all bran at the time, and so I would have all bran or something, just a small bowl of bran before going to bed. And so kind of, I still had breakfast at breakfast, still had supper at supper. But again, I had guys I worked with and they would do the opposite way around. They would literally eat breakfast mid-afternoon and do their meals like normal. I just flip my meals around. But again, it's just more often than not kind of what works for you when you're actually in that shift worker's position.
And with regard to you working shifts, and we're just going to talk a little bit about the circadian rhythm, because obviously our melatonin levels, like naturally, like they have like an ebb and flow. They rise and lower throughout that 24-hour period. And our melatonin is lowest at like between 2:30 and 3:30 in the morning. So when your melatonin's at its highest, that's when you're at your sleepiest. And you said that you've had it when you've like been sat around the meal table at the Scania dealership, and you said the guys have just been like dropping like to sleep.
Well, if we, again, our supper time or main break time, I guess, was like 2:30 in the morning. If one of the guys was out on a call and we said, oh, we'll wait till they get back, then we may not eat till 3:30, 3:45. And if you've got a bunch of us sitting around the lunch table at 3:45, 4 a.m., like Karen said, that is your lowest ebb when it comes to like hormonally, and your body's kind of trying to recover and rebuild itself for the next day, and your body temperature's also at its lowest at this point. And we were a bunch of nodding dogs. We just you couldn't stay awake. It was like really difficult to stay awake. But if your brain was active and you were active, it was easier to stay awake. But if we just kind of sat around, it was just like dropping like flies. I mean, guys are just asleep at that point.
Like you say, obviously, when your melatonin is at its highest. So, like when I used to teach to the CN rail workers, like it was important to get across to them that, like, hormonally, this is what is going to happen to your body. You can't really stop those functions happening. You can manipulate them slightly, but basically that 24-hour period and your circadian rhythm and where your melatonin actually rises and lowers, and then your cortisol levels do the same thing. You can't really change that, and just because like you are working shifts. So I would say to the shift workers that, 3:00 in the morning, you know, if you've got to be at your most alert and you've got to be in charge of like millions of dollars worth of train engine, and melatonin's at its highest and you're falling asleep, then that's going to be a serious issue. So I used to like discuss like ways to manipulate like their alertness through their nutrition. So, at certain times of the day when your melatonin is high, you need to kind of like focus on, proteins, healthy fats to kind of like give you that energy level. But like, what do most people do when they're tired? They just like whack back the sugars, the carbs, like, because it gives you that instant energy, but then you're going to have that crash. So, and with that circadian rhythm, like your melatonin levels are kind of going to start dropping off again at around 7:30 in the morning, and then your cortisol level starts to increase at around like 9-10 o'clock. So I say that internal coffee pot kicks in, and then you go through that 24-hour period, your cortisol starts to lower, then your melatonin like increases. And so hormonally, we can't really stop those things happening, but I used to obviously try and get across to them like through nutrition how they could actually manipulate it so through food so that they could actually get more energy at a time when your body's telling you no. And then one of the things obviously in that presentation, that workshop, was the guy saying like, well, and anybody really right now, because people are working from home, they are grabbing quick foods, like it needs to be easy. They like say you might be juggling homeschooling and running the household, working from home. You might be working shift work on top of trying to do all this as well. And one of the first things that goes is your fitness levels, and people are struggling, going like, well, how do I fit any activity into this? And I'll let you take over here, because obviously there's things that I used to say to the CN rail guys, but also you've been doing like an online program. So you've got to do a shout out about that one for Melanie, and how you can fit fitness into a hectic schedule.
Well, yeah, with especially like again the COVID thing, I got a client, somebody we've known for quite a while, and she's a school teacher, and she decided that when the lockdown came along earlier this year, that she was going to improve her health, and with that extra little bit of time she got now, because I mean her commute to work's probably 35-40 minutes, so she said she's got extra little bit of time, even though she was doing more work from home because there's more questions from the kids and there's different things to do with putting things online with classes. She just found time to fit in some exercise. And again, I discussed with her before we started the online course what would work for her time wise, and just programmed in a couple of workout routines for her to do that would fit in with her schedule.
And she's got a kid of her own, so she had the full whammy: teaching, like looking after her kid at home, running the household, and yeah.
But she still managed to fit it in. From April when we started up until I think last week, it's been like 26. So it's been 6 months basically, and she's about 32 pounds down now. Feels 100% better, and she actually put photos of herself in her wedding dress on social media not long ago because, again, she fits into it now, which she was really pleased about. But, again, people, when you're doing shift work, more often than not, will try and either do absolutely nothing because you're so tired, which, again, is kind of the negative thing, because doing some activity will give you more energy, as we all know, but sometimes it's difficult getting off the couch. But doing an activity that will coincide with you doing shift work. So like Karen says, you've got anabolic and catabolic, and with exercise is catabolic. So I mean, if you're already sleep deprived and you're not feeling great and your energy is a little bit low, then the last thing you probably want to do is go out running 10 miles a day, because that is so catabolic and it's going to run your energy down. So ideally you want to probably lift some weights, which again is catabolic, but certainly to a lesser degree than what doing lots of high intensity or steady state cardio would be. Those things are important, but maybe save those things for the weekend. But certainly lifting some weights and being active, and then finding what time of the day that kind of fits in with your schedule. Again, going back to my example of when I was doing shift work, I would get up at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And again, I was doing some triathlon at the time. So for a couple of days a week, I would go for a bike ride maybe in the afternoon. And then the other days of the week, I would go to the gym on the way to work, because I mean, my gym was literally around the corner. So I would get to the gym at 7:30, 8 o'clock, work out for 45 minutes or so, and get changed, and then go to work and be at work for 9:30. So I mean, that worked for me. My longer runs and things I would save till the weekend, because again, they were like really draining and kind of super catabolic, and I needed that extra time. I used to get extra sleep on Saturday night and Sunday night. I used to probably sleep 11 hours a night on those days, and try to wake up again fairly refreshed. Monday was always a day off. I probably wouldn't do much exercise on a Monday, because Monday nights were always long, because you get up at 11 in the morning, maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock, and then you weren't going to bed till 8 o'clock on the day after. So again, you always had that almost 24-hour period on the Monday. And so again, I just structured in at the time. I mean, I wasn't a fitness professional at the time, so what I was doing was just trying to find out what worked for me. And again, the one thing you need to do is do some exercise, because like you say, for mental and for physical, it's one of the best things you can do to help yourself. Plus also, I mean, as we all know, it's a super strong immune system booster as well, because again, you're getting all those things, endorphins flying around the body, and again, the cells are working. From a cellular point of view, you'll uptake glucose way better even if you're not working out, because again, the cellular enzymes and receptors are programmed once you start to exercise to uptake sugar better. So again, you're going to burn those sugars off, you're going to burn that energy off, and you're not going to put that weight around your middle where it always wants to get, when again, those cortisol fluctuations are happening because of shift work. Again, if you've not got a lot of time, some people are really struck for time, and sometimes just a short burst of energy push out. Like I say, you don't want to do stuff that's like really long-winded and like 10-mile runs and stuff like that. So I mean, we've done a 8-minute like Tabata workout, and the fitness professional that Karen used to do this talk with used to put them through like a short high intensity workout. And I mean, we've got several on my YouTube page that I've done.
We can put the links on the show notes.
And it's just stuff you can fit in. And again, fit it in where it fits in for you. If you are working shifts, like I say, I always used to do mine in the afternoon when I got up. I had co-workers that would not go to bed when they got home in the morning. They'd probably go and do some exercise. I mean, some mornings I used to go to the swimming pool at the gym after work, have a swim for half an hour, sit in the sauna, have a shower, and as soon as I got home, I was absolutely dog tired. I'd literally just take my gear off and then just flop into bed, and I was done by that point. But I got co-workers who would do their exercise in the morning, stay up maybe till 11 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock. They would go to bed at midday, and then they would get up at 8 o'clock at night, treat it as 8 o'clock in the morning, have some breakfast, and then come to work and almost flip their days on their head. Whereas I preferred, because Karen's shift at the time she was working at, she would come home at 3 in the afternoon.
Just in time for you to get out of bed.
Just as I was getting up. So literally we'd have from 3 till 9 every day. So 6 hours a day together. So some days we'd go to the movies. Some day I'd go out and work out and you'd be at home. Some days we'd go to the gym together. Or we'd go and do. So we had a lot of time together, but just how our shifts or how your work and my shifts kind of tied in together. So, I mean, that was good, but there's no set structure to any of this. It's just kind of, as usual, finding what works for you and what works for your lifestyle and what works for your energy levels.
And going back to that client of yours, the teacher, she obviously like made a concerted effort to do something, and we'll put the link to that program because it's an online program, and you kept her accountable. You'd be checking in with her most days, and you'd provide workouts, you provide nutrition guidance. So it was just something like simple, so she didn't have to come and meet us anywhere at the gym, did she? And
no, I mean, there's 3 online programs available, but some people have said, well, that's not, I kind of want in between one and in between the other one. So that's fine, we can program that, and that's not a problem. So again, if you do take a look and it's something you're interested in, then but by all means get in touch if it's not exactly what you're looking for, because we can, again, they're just outlines of what we can offer. Some have got nutrition in, some are just workouts. I've had a guy recently I've been working with, and his goal is to lose some weight so he can go and join the RCMP. And I mean, he's a truck driver at the minute, so we're kind of having to tie it in with his truck driving shifts and everything else. But his goal is to get fit, lose weight, so when he goes out to Regina to join the police for the 6-month training period, there's a lot of exercise, running and all the rest of it, and the dude needs to be kind of 50 pound lighter and in better shape to go and tackle that and get through the course. So yeah, everything's liquid. We can shuffle anything around to suit. But so yeah, we'll definitely put that link into the show notes.
And also, I know that I've mentioned a little bit about nutrition, but I'll just pull a couple of slides off the presentation that I used to give, because when it comes to shift work or just generally navigating better sleep habits, and like say people who are working from home right now and trying to juggle and fit more stuff into their day, one of the things to consider is the importance of B vitamins in your diet, and like how it will help with hormonal production, melatonin, serotonin, tryptophan, and just basically be high quality nutrients that you need to get into your diet. So we'll put that in the show notes too. I'll just pull a few things off that, rather than just like list them all down here, because then at least like you've got something that you can print off and keep yourself. And like say, we'll put the links in the show notes. So hopefully this has been useful and kind of highlighted just a few things. I mean, the presentation that I used to do at the college was like 3+ hours long, so I've just pulled a couple. I
can't believe you could talk for 3 hours, sweetheart.
Well, no, we basically do probably an hour and a half each, but like say, the nutrition and the fitness go hand in hand. So although it was a nutrition and fitness for shift workers, like say, with everything that's going on right now, I think this is valuable advice, like whatever shifts. And
and I mean, you're not a lost cause, No.
I
mean, just because things have changed, try to adapt with what the change is. And again, one of the big things you don't want to do is change everything at once. So as we've said before, just keep picking different things off, see what works, see what doesn't work. And again, if you see yourself putting some weight on or your energy levels have dropped because, again, due to you staying at home now and you're not as active, and people, even though they work in office buildings, would still have to walk from the car. They'd walk from the car to the office building. They'd maybe take the elevator or the stairs. They'd walk around the office. They'd go and see people. They'd walk to meetings. They may go for a walk out at lunchtime. And now you're stuck at home. You're not necessarily doing any of those things as much. So maybe just be cognizant of, again, maybe that you're not moving as much as you thought you were. Even though you think you don't move at work, you're still moving, per se, just again from place A to place B and back again. So just try and add that little bit in. Have a look at that high intensity 8-minute thing we did. It'll wind you pretty quick. And 8 minutes doesn't sound very long, but again, if you do tackle it at your level. Don't tackle it at my level as I'm doing it. And we do put modifications in there and kind of help people out, as with the other videos we've done too.
And one of the things I was just thinking of, with a lot of people working from home, one of my boot campers said her daughter at first was like, great, I can sit on the bed and I've got my laptop and I'm, in my comfy chair. And then all of a sudden people are actually developing postural and back and, developing injuries as a result of like the fact that you're not now at maybe it's an ergonomically designed desk. So maybe we should tackle that in a future podcast, just kind of, working from home posture and mobility.
Because I pulled a muscle in my upper back a couple of weeks ago working out. And like I say, sometimes we've been doing a little bit of work downstairs, and if I sit on the couch with the laptop on my knee just to kind of catch up with a few things in the evening, I tend to put the mouse and the mouse pad on the arm of the chair, the couch on my right side, and having my elbow elevated has actually made my shoulder muscle worse now. You'd think I'd know better, but again, you just kind of get into those comfy positions. And now I'm having to do a little bit more rehab and some more stretching and stop sitting on the couch with my laptop.
Yeah. So a future podcast episode, I think.
Yeah. Hopefully this has been some help. It's great to be back. Sorry for the long hiatus, but like I say, you think you've got a lot of time and then we've just been busy, but we'll, talking to busy, the next one will be full of bees. So we'll see you then.
That's all we have time for today, but we do hope that you join us on our next show. If you'd like to contribute to an upcoming episode with a topic, a question, or even if you'd like to be a guest on our show, then shoot us an email to questions@healthyhalfhourpodcast.com, or you can actually leave us a message on our Facebook or Instagram pages. The Healthy Half Hour Podcast was brought to you by Sunnyside Honey Pot and 7dayshred.com. If you like the show, tell your friends, and if you didn't, tell us and we'll work on it for you. Thanks again for listening.